First, let me introduce myself. My name is Tatiana Golubova, and I'm the Associate Professor of the Public Health and Healthcare Department. What I am going to talk about today is the foundation of market relations and health market. My objective today is to discuss the concept of the market and health markets, basic categories, tasks, and problems, to provide students with an understanding of the specifics of the health services market and marketing activities in health sector. Let me begin by explaining why medical students need to know this information. The modern economy is based on the market mechanism, and the state acts as its regulator. The effective functioning of the economic system is provided by the action of the market mechanism, which makes it possible to achieve the best possible use of limited resources. The market mechanism is a process by which sellers and buyers interact to determine the price and quantity of goods produced, so that demand, supply, and price are its main elements. In a market economy, healthcare, like any other industry, is subject to the laws of the market. In modern conditions, there are increasing requirements for medical professionals in terms of their readiness to work in a competitive environment. The transition to a market economy and the introduction of paid services in healthcare organizations has required training in marketing. Without knowledge and understanding of the process involved in the marketing of medical goods and services, it's impossible to become a competitive specialist in the healthcare markets. The economic changes in healthcare are related to the transition to market relations. A market economy is a set of economic relations in society, regulated by the market mechanism. In a market economy, the coordination and management of economic life is carried out through system of markets, prices, profits, and losses under competitive conditions. Business entities competing for the consumer operate in the market of a particular product, which is dynamically developing, becoming more complex, changing, and transforming. Each business entity in its activities must take into account the peculiarity of functioning and trends of market development. This makes it possible to win the competition for clients and work economically effectively. Healthcare, in the conditions of modern market economy, in one way or another, uses its laws and principles to solve its tasks. There are various definitions of the concept of market. In everyday life, the market is most often associated with a place where you can buy food, clothing, household goods, etc. It's the oldest form of market, a traditional place where buyers and sellers make transactions. In economic terms, the market reflects the relationship that develops between producers, sellers, intermediaries, and consumers of goods and services. There are many definitions of the market, but they all can be summed up in the fact that the market is a set of economic relations manifested in the exchange of goods and services, which result in the formation of demand, supply, and price in a competitive environment. The market is a set of social and economic relations in the sphere of production, distribution, exchange, and consumption of goods and services. The market is also understood as system which includes various elements, their interaction and mutual influence of which actively affects the economy. Modern market theory distinguishes three main markets: markets of goods and services, market for factors of production, land, minerals, labor, and financial market. The market performs several functions and influences the development of healthcare. Informational function. The market provides the participants of production with objective information about the necessary quantity and quality of services or goods supplied to the market. Intermediary function means that producer must exchange the result of their labor. Without the market, it's impossible to determine the mutuality of the exchange. Price forming function. Goods and services of the same purpose but differing cost of production enter the market. The market recognizes only socially necessary costs only if the consumer agrees to pay them. Regulatory function. Through competition, the market regulates the reduction of costs per unit of rendered services, improvement of their quality, encourages scientific and technological progress. Improving function. Through the mechanism of competition, the market is cleared of economically unstable, economically unviable units, and the green light is given to effective organizations. Incentive function. Encouraging producers to create new products, to create necessary goods with the lowest costs and obtaining sufficient profit. It's very important for the development of the economy. The function of economy. It implies the reduction of the cost of circulation and the consumption, the cost of buyers to buy goods, and the proportionality demand of the population with wages and salaries. How can we characterize the positive role of the market in society? The market makes it possible to solve such central problems of the economy as the standard of living, the structure and efficiency of production. The market makes it possible to enjoy universal values. It is itself an achievement of world civilization. The market demonstrates its possibility in developed countries, in developing states, regardless of national, ideological, and other particularities. The market mechanism frees the economy as a whole from shortages of goods and services. Both in theory and in practice, the market economy is mostly deficit-free within the limits of the resources, including imports, available to the country. Scarcity is contrary to the economic interests of market participants. Discrepancy between the emergence of a need and its satisfaction are possible. They are conditioned by the scientific and technical potential available in society, by the availability of resources and are temporary in nature. The market is where value is realized and goods are brought to the consumer. It serves as a link between economically autonomous producers and between production and consumption. The market affects all phases of reproduction: production, distribution, exchange, and consumption. By bringing together the producer and the consumer and coordinating their activities, the market spontaneously ensures the continuity of the reproduction process. Through the market, enormous flows of material resources, goods and services are directed from owner to consumers, and in return, in monetary forms, the means necessary for the continuation of the process of production move toward them. By differentiating the producers, providing the state with better opportunities to achieve social justice in the national economy, which could not be achieved under conditions of total statehood, the market fulfills a social function. Let's look at the basic principles of market functioning. They are as follows: the freedom of economic and entrepreneurial activity of an individual or a social group, the primacy of the consumer, a special kind of responsibility to the consumer emerges, who dictates his will, his desires, his taste to the producer. The market pricing process. The price in the market is formed as a result of the bargaining of the seller and the buyer, the interaction of supply and demand. Contractual relations. Next principle. Competition. State regulation of the market and market relations. The tools of market regulation are government programs, taxation, the financial and credit system, and also the banking system. The openness of the economy. Economic organizations and entrepreneurs have the right to carry out foreign economic transactions, provided that certain conditions and restrictions are observed. And at last, social protection of the population, very important principles of market functioning. Markets can be classified in a number of ways. According to the economic purpose of the object of market relations, there are market of goods and services, consumer market, securities market, labor market, currency market, the market of information, the market of scientific and technical development, patent, licenses, know-how, etc. By commodity group, there are market for manufactured goods, market for consumer goods, e.g. food, market for raw materials, etc. By geographic location, there are local markets, regional markets, national, world markets. By subject or groups of subjects, there are buyer's market, seller's market, the market of state institutions, the market of intermediate sellers, etc. According to the degree of restriction of competition, there are monopoly market, oligopolistic market, the market of monopolistic competition, the market of perfect competition, or free market. and at last by compliance with the law. Can be legal or official market, illegal or shadow market, black and gray, and others. In real practice, the main types of markets are divided into different submarkets or market segments. Market segmentation is the division of consumers of a given product into separate groups with different requirements for the product. Market segmentation can be carried out in different ways using various factors. Firstly, taking into account geographical factors, it's possible to allocate groups of consumers by region, administrative division, population density, climatic conditions. Secondly, if we proceed from demographic factors, we can group consumers by age, gender, family size, income level, professional composition, educational level, religion, affiliation, nationality composition. Thirdly, taking into account the behavior of different consumer groups, the following market segments can be identified. The buying of goods is causal. The thought for benefits when buying goods. The state of a regular customer. The emotional, positive, negative, indifferent attitude towards the product. Fourthly, consumers can also be divided into groups according to social composition, with varying degrees of wealth, lifestyle, elitist, youth, sports, etc., personal qualities, ambitious, authoritarian, impulsive. It's important to understand the prerequisites of the market economy in health sector. The main conditions for the development of market relations in healthcare are diversity of forms of ownership and types of economic activity, unlimited number of participants, free access to the market, equal access of all medical institutions and commercial organizations to available resources. Each participant of the market has a full volume of information on the medical services market, and use of free balance market price in accordance with the law of balance of supply and demand. Let's name the consequences of the introduction of market relations in health sector. Now, first, it's the exchange in the nature of relations between healthcare subjects, transition from administrative to predominantly economic. Second, changes in the system of healthcare funding, emergence of new sources of financing, new variants of payment for medical services. Third, the role of the state has changed. It now acts not only as guarantor of free medical care within the program of state guarantees of free medical care for citizens in Russia, but also is one of the buyers of medical services for the population. And at last, changes in the forms of ownership of healthcare facilities, and the development of the commercial sector in healthcare. The market, as a developed system of commodity exchange relations, is a system of separate interrelated markets. The market for medical services is part of the healthcare market. The market of medical services is the set of medical technologies, medical equipment, and methods of organization of medical activities, pharmacological means, therapeutic interventions, and prophylaxis in a competitive economy. The market of medical goods and services is a segment of the market providing medical goods and services to preserve and improve health of the population. The emergence of the health services market differs significantly from the provision of other services due to the special characteristics and requirements of medical services. Let's name the peculiarities of the market in the sphere of medical services. First, there are three groups of subjects in the market for medical services: producers, seller of medical goods and services, medical institution, medical worker; the buyer, patient, employer, state; and intermediary, insurance, medical organizations. Second, the asymmetry in healthcare is much more pronounced of information between producer and consumer with regard to consumer properties of the received service. Third, healthcare is a sphere where there is absolute trust in seller, doctor. Fourth, medical service is easy to sell, but it must be of high quality. Fifth, the medical service is a high priority. Sixth, there is no clear link between the labor costs of medical professionals and the outcome. And at last, 7, in healthcare, social and medical efficiency come first, and economic efficiency, while important, comes last. Let's look at the main categories of the health market. Basic concepts of the market are demand, supply, service, price, competition, and marketing. Demand, as applied to healthcare, is the quantity of medical goods and services that society, individual patients, wants and can buy at a given time at a certain price. There are the following types of demand in the market of medical services. Negative demand, for example, for vaccination, consultations for certain specialists, expensive producers, etc. Hidden demand, when an individual patient may have a need that cannot be met by available medical goods and services on the market, e.g., family physician services, single-use medical products, individual and patient nutrition, etc. Falling demand. The demand for reusable medical devices, home-produced drugs is falling, so the market has responded with increased supply of single-use medical devices, imported medicines. Over-demand. Demand for emergency medical care during holidays and post-holidays days, when patients with chronic disease break their diet, regimen, and abuse alcohol, the traumatism rate increases. Irregular demand. Due to seasonal temporary fluctuations, for example, the demand for health resort treatment is high in the spring and summer period than in the autumn-winter period. Referrals to individual specialist doctor depend on the seasonality of certain illnesses, flu, ulcer, viral hepatitis, etc. There is also a forced demand due to the impact of advertising. The most important property of demand is that if all other parameters, conditions, remain unchanged, a decrease in price leads to a corresponding increase in the value of demand. Conversely, an increase in price leads to a corresponding decrease in the magnitude of the demand. The existence of the inverse relationship between the price and the demand is the essence of the law of demand. When the price goes down, the consumer wants to buy more of these goods or services. In addition, when there are low prices of some goods or services, the consumer has an incentive to buy cheap goods services instead of similar but more expensive ones. Factors affecting the level of demand are the following: the level of monetary income of the population, consumer expectation about future prices and incomes, number of consumers in the market, demographic, age and sex structure of the population, tastes and preferences of the population. In general, supply is the mass of goods and services that are offered for sale. In the healthcare market, supply is the number of medical services that doctors can provide in a certain period of time to the population. There is a direct relationship between price and supply. The law of supply says supply, other things being equal, changes in direct relation to changes in price. The total supply of medical goods and services depends on the following determinants. First, the cost of factors of production for medical goods and services, labor, material, energy, fixed assets, which determines the value of production costs, the cost of production. Second, availability of production factors, medical staff, equipment, means of treatment. Quality, availability, convenience of offered services is good, also affect the level of supply. Scientific, technical, and technological level of production of medical goods and services in the country, with which the cost of production and circulation are related. Next factor, value of tax burden on production and sale of medical goods and services. Presence of competitors on the market. And last, market capacity determined by the number of goods and services. The need to maintain health ranks first in the hierarchy of needs. In the market of medical services, the good is not a commodity, but health, the key factor of which is these services. As a result of the consumption of medical services, an improvement in health is expected. A healthy person has the opportunity to be active, to realize themselves in various spheres of life. Currently, the terms medical service and medical care are often used as synonyms. However, they are not identical. Medical care is provided through the implementation of curative and preventive measures in order to preserve and restore human health, which are carried out by workers with medical education and appropriate qualifications. These activities are primarily related to the technology of medical intervention and are not mediated by the market mechanism. The state guarantees its citizens medical care, which is provided through the system of compulsory health insurance in Russia. Residents of the country receive medical care in the state and municipal medical institutions, as well as emergency stations. Medical service is an event or set of events that is aimed at disease prevention, diagnosis, and treatment which have an independent final value and certain cost. These are paid services which involve the conclusion of a fee-for-service contract. The result of the activity of medical institution is a product in the form of a medical service sold on the market. Consumers take such a service as a necessary good that they need and are willing to pay for. Medical service is included in the category of those that change under the influence of the market mechanism, i.e. the interaction of supply and demand. Demand is formed based on consumers' patients' needs. Supply is realized by different medical institutions. Let us know that patients are represented in the market not only by individuals, but also by the state and insurance organization. Medical service can be, from the patient's perspective, simple, example, diagnostic manipulation, doctor's examination, blood pressure measurement. Complex is a set of simple services. Standard, provided according to unified technology for the vast majority of patients. And individual covers a wide range of diagnostic and curative procedures, a large set of medicines and medical devices. By functional purpose can be named curative and diagnostic, aimed at establishing the diagnosis and treatment of diseases, including assistance in physiological childbirth and neonatology in the absence of pathology in the newborn. Prophylactic includes medical checkup, vaccination, sporting and recreational activities. Rehabilitation related to social and medical rehabilitation of patients. Transportation includes transportation of patients, in particular using the service ambulance and sanitation services. Sanitary and hygiene medical services, example, quarantine activities, health education, sanitary control and supervision. By the conditions of care, there are medical service outside of health institution, outpatient, including at home, inpatient, including intensive care, day hospital conditions of medical services. The characteristics of health services can be divided into three groups. The first group is the features related to the quantitative characteristic of the service. The service can be presented both in commodity form and in non-commodity form for the consumer, like state guarantees for the provision of free medical care in Russia, i.e. it can be market or non-market. The cost of the service is determined depending on the source of funding. The second group of peculiarities related to the specificity of manifestation of the result of professional activity itself. The result is embodied in the person himself. Material components of the service as an expression, X-ray, electrocardiogram, prescription. The service is always individual. It's not the service that is placed on the market, but only information about the service. The result is always diverse in its physical volume. The result has a complex structure, is divided into a lot of quasi-results. The amount of resources needed to achieve the result cannot be precisely determined in advance. Also, the result varied in terms of timing. The third group of features related to the service delivery process. Dependence on local natural climatic conditions, the presence of an active doctor-patient relationship, the possibility of territorial mobility, diversity of the duration of the provision of identical appropriate services, and at last a high degree of risk. Also, let's name specific features of the medical services market. Features of the dynamics of demands for medical services. Demand decreases in summer and increases in winter. Peculiarities of territorial segmentation of the market, which depends on the structure of morbidity of the population in the region. And also relatively high rate of capital turnover, because the production of medical services is a short cycle. Medical goods and services have a value, the monetary expression of which is the price. In the market for medical goods and services, price is central to competitive exchanges and is one of the tools used to regulate that market. Price is the amount of money a buyer can buy and seller can sell a given good or service for. Prices are a powerful lever of economic management. Price is a monetary expression of the value of a service is formed by the interaction on the market between the demand and supply carriers, i.e. the patient and the producer of the service, the doctor. The demand price is the maximum price at which the consumer agrees to receive a given service, purchase goods. The consumer, having a certain amount of money, can buy a certain number of services or goods, and thus the demand price is dictated by the consumer. The supply price is the minimum price at which the producers of services or goods are still willing to sell them. The supply price should fully recoup the cost of providing services, production of goods, and bring profit. The producer is interested in providing services, selling goods at the highest prices. Thus, the producer dictates the supply price. The price of a medical service is determined by the following formula. Price is sum of cost price, profit, and taxes. To determine the prime cost of one medical service, we calculate the cost by groups of expenses for each type of medical care. So, cost price is sum of direct and indirect costs. Direct costs include the costs associated with the process of healthcare rendering itself, wages and charges to the salaries of key personnel, physicians and nurses, material costs, medicines, dressings, biochemical reagents, single-use instruments, soft inventory, amortization of equipment directly used in the provision of medical services. Indirect costs include costs that support the activity of the institution but are not directly involved in the process of providing medical service. Wages and charges to general agency personnel managers, payment for communications, transportations and utility services, work and services for property maintenance, etc., payment for other consumable and soft inventory, amortization of buildings, structures, and other fixed assets not directly related to the provision of medical services. The system of prices for medical services includes the following groups: budget prices, calculated cost of medical services which does not reflect the real cost of a medical institution. They are used in determining the amount of funding of institutions from the budget, for mutual settlements between medical institutions within the territory or among subdivisions of one institution. Prices for paid medical services, list prices, reflect practical costs of a medical institution for rendering medical services and include profit. They are used for settlements with individuals as well as with enterprises and organizations paying for services for their employees. Contractual prices, established by direct contracts between medical institutions and consumers of paid services. Profit is not limited in any way. Tariffs for medical services under compulsory health insurance reflect the amounts of money which determines the level of reimbursement of the medical institution's expenses on the implementation of the territorial compulsory health insurance program, approved by the head of the health committee and the executive bodies of the territorial compulsory health insurance funds. They are regulated by the order of the Federal Fund of Compulsory Health Insurance. These tariffs have the following main features. They are set only for those services which are included in the territorial compulsory health insurance program. They are calculated for each of the indicators used by a medical institution: average cost of a treated patient, number of bed days spent per completed case of treatment, average per capita norms. The tariffs include expenses and funds for development of medical institutions. Free prices for paid medical services formed on the basis of market indicators: utility, value of the service, consumer ability to pay, market conditions, quality of service, tastes of patient, loss of supply and demand. Competition is the main link in the market mechanism. It's the struggle between economic subjects, the struggle for markets for goods and services in order to obtain higher income and other benefits. In the market of goods and services of healthcare, competitive participants can be state, municipal healthcare institution on the implementation of the state municipal task on a competitive basis, organization producing similar goods and services for the need of healthcare, and private practitioners and pharmacies providing similar medical goods or services for medical purposes. The study of competitors, highlighting their strengths and weaknesses, is important to win a certain share of the market for medical services. The competitive advantages of participants in the market of medical goods and services includes exclusivity, uniqueness of offered goods and services, accessible price of the offer, not exceeding the offer prices of other participants, high quality of goods and services, a wide range of goods and services, guarantees of quality and reliability provided by the possibility of replacement, repeated service, elimination of defects, compensation for losses, convenient for client location of point of sale, rendering of services, convenient for patient doctor's working hour, availability of price discounts for certain category of consumers, seasonal discounts, volume discounts, and of course high culture of service. Competitive advantages are considered as the basis of the strategy of behavior of participants on the market of medical goods and services, which is especially important in conditions of development of compulsory and voluntary insurance. Let me now examine the concept and meaning of marketing in healthcare. The marketing concept is a system of basic ideas, provisions for market activities, which assumes that the achievement of the organization's goals depends on how well it has studied consumer demands and satisfied them in the most complete and efficient way in comparison with competitors. The term marketing comes from the English market and means market activities. There are a lot of definitions of marketing. Let's take some of them. According to Rolf Alexander, marketing is an entrepreneurial activity that manages the promotion of goods and services from producers to consumers or users. Philip Kotler gave the next definition. Marketing is a type of a human activity designed to meet needs and requirements through exchange. Let's take definition according to American Medical Association. Marketing in healthcare is a comprehensive process of planning, economic justification, and management of the production of healthcare services, pricing policy in the field of treatment and prevention process, promotion of services good of medical value to consumers, as well as the process of their realization. Marketing in healthcare is a system of principles, methods, and measures based on a comprehensive study of consumer demand and purposeful formation of supply of medical services by the producer. The essence of marketing to find a need and satisfy it. Marketing in the broad sense is the concept of prioritization market demand. The necessity of marketing in public health is caused by the formation of elements of market relations with the development of the private sector in the market of medical goods and services. The main prerequisites for the introduction of marketing in healthcare are the decrease in the turnout of the population for medical care, the worsening of the state of health of the population, the increase in requirements for the quality of healthcare, the increase in the cost of medical services, the increase in the supply of medical services over the demand, development of non-state medical institutions, the emergence of new sources of funding from buyers of medical services independent of the state, and the changes in the methods of funding medical institutions. In general, the aim of marketing to create value by offering high-quality solutions that save time and efforts, which the buyer spends on funding and completing the deal, and provide society as a whole with a high standard of living. Experts highlight the four alternative marketing goals. First, maximization of consumption maximizes production, employment, and therefore the welfare of society. The maximization of customer satisfaction assumes that it is more important not to simply increase consumption, but to achieve an increase in consumer satisfaction. To maximize consumer choice, it is necessary to provide such a variety of products so that consumers are able to find products which satisfy their tastes precisely. The maximization of quality of life is one of the alternative social goals of marketing, according to which marketing should not only ensure quantity, quality, variety, and accessibility of goods at affordable prices, but also the quality of the cultural and physical environment in which people live. Marketing in medicine is a system of studying the market for medical goods and services in order to form and meet the need of consumers by realization of a complex of preventive, sanitary hygiene, and medical services, medicines, therapeutic, and rehabilitative items. The objectives of marketing in healthcare are to ensure the profitability of the production of medical services, medicines, achievement of economic efficiency from their implementation in an acceptable time within the available production capacity. At the same time, the head of a medical institution must get answered to the following questions. By whom will the appropriate service be provided? Where? When? How? At what price? In what quantity? The goals of marketing are directly related to the goals of healthcare. In the 3rd and 6th of the 20th century, the fundamental one was the control of epidemics and infectious diseases. In the 60s and 80s of the 20th century, the focus was on controlling infectious and non-infectious chronic human diseases. Nowadays, in addition to the priority in healthcare for the reduction of socially significant diseases, the concept of health of the healthy, i.e. preventive medicine, also plays an important role. In today's Russia, the current budgetary insurance model of healthcare funding does not ensure adequate quality and satisfaction of the population in the medical care provided. In this regard, in the context of a market economy based on Russian legislation, the number of commercial healthcare institutions is increasing, and the share of private healthcare services provided to the population is increasing too. Also, in accordance with Russian legislation, Public, not-profit healthcare institutions have the right to provide paid medical services to the population if they wish and to engage in other types of commercial activity. In this context, knowledge of the theory and practice of marketing becomes particularly relevant for today's healthcare professionals. At the present time, regardless of the forms of ownership of medical and preventive organizations, types of medical activities, all medical professionals will have to learn how to work on the principles of marketing. To understand the essence of marketing, it is necessary to consider the following basic concepts: need, demand, request, goods, exchange, market, and others. Let's start from the simplest. Want is a feeling of something lacking. Physiological needs like food, warmth, thirst, reproduction. Social need, spiritual, closeness, signs of self-affirmation, personal needs, attention, etc. If a want is not met, a person feels deprived and unhappy. Need is a want that has taken a specific form according to the cultural level and personality of the individual. For example, a sick person has a demand for a certain medicine. The needs pyramid reflects one of the most popular and well-known theories of motivation, the hierarchy of needs theory. Maslow ranks needs in descending order of importance, explaining this structure by the fact that one cannot have high-level needs as long as one needs the more primitive things. At the bottom is physiology, satisfying hunger, thirst, and similar deprivation. A step above is the need for security, above this the need for affection and love, as well as the need for belonging to a social group. The next step is the need for respect and approval, above which Maslow placed the need for knowledge, thirst for knowledge, desire for as much information as possible. Next comes the need for aesthetics, the thought for harmonized life, to fill it with beauty, art. And finally, the last rank of the pyramid, the highest one, is the desire to discover one's inner potential, its self-actualization. A demand is a want supported by purchasing power. Resources to meet the want are usually limited. A person will choose those goods and services that give him or her the greatest satisfaction within his or her financial means. In healthcare, the satisfaction of want depends not only on the patient's ability to pay, but also on the availability of medical care, equipment, and qualification of doctors. A good is anything that can meet a want or need, and it's offered to the market for the purpose of attention, purchase, use, or consumption. In healthcare, a basic good is a service. On the slide, you can see key commodities in healthcare sector. Medical items, medicine, dressing means, medical equipment, caring goods, health information for health professionals, patients, sponsor, educational information, services, medical, paramedical, hotel, educational, domestic, legal, and others. A service is an activity or benefit that one party can offer to another. We discussed already in detail medical services characteristics. An exchange is the act of receiving an object desired from someone with an offer in return. Conditions for the exchange are the following. There must be at least two parties to the exchange. Each party must have something valuable for the other party. Each party must be capable to communicate and deliver its goods. The party must be free to make or reject decisions. The parties must be confident that it's appropriate to make the exchange. Exchange is the basic concept of marketing. Without exchange, there is no market. A transaction is a commercial exchange of value between two parties. The conditions of the transaction are at least two goods that have consumer value, agreed terms of the contract, agreed time of transaction, agreed location. A transaction is a measurement unit in marketing. Market is a form of relation, an exchange organized according to the laws of commodity production and circulation, the totality of relations of commodity exchange. The market is a set of existing and potential buyers. Marketing involves working with the market for the purpose of making exchanges, the aim of which is to satisfy human needs and wants. In healthcare, it can be health, various medical preparations, medical services of various specialists, medical technologies, etc. Potential patient consumers of medical services produce their marketing when they choose a suitable healthcare facility, a form of medical care, and specific medical professionals. Marketing activities in healthcare should provide reliable, authentic, and timely information about the market, the structure and dynamics of specific demand, tastes and preferences of patients, buyers of medical services, information about the external conditions of medical institutions. A creation of such good services or set of good services which more fully meets the requirements of the market than the product of competitors. Necessary influence on the consumer of health services, on the demand, on the market, ensuring maximum possible control of the sales area. The specific features of the medical business determine the approach to the promotion of paid medical services. If they are not taken into account, it will not be possible to promote a private clinic effectively. The patient is not an ordinary customer. Choosing a clinic or an individual specialist is approached with more responsibility than choosing a product. It is not uncommon for a person to feel nervous or fearful for their health when entrusting it to someone else. They are also aware that some producers may be accompanied by pain. Most patients are informationally limited and are forced to fully trust their doctor, accepting the prescribed treatment and following the recommendations. A doctor is not an ordinary seller of goods or services. A doctor's professionalism and experience affect not only the quality of service delivery, but also a person's health, sometimes life. That is why the doctor must strictly follow instructions and take into account many different factors when carrying out the initial examination, diagnosis, and treatment. All his actions must be aimed at achieving the result, improvement of the patient condition. The effectiveness of a doctor work has a direct impact on his personal reputation and the reputation of the entire clinic. A medical service is a different kind of service. Consultation with a doctor is not the same as a trip to the hairdressers or a trip to the car service. After all, the problem is that a person goes to a specialist often affects his or her quality of life. Therefore, its solution, which includes medical supplies, staff manipulation, laboratory work, and specialized equipment, has a rather relative value. The doctor-patient relationship is very important. The actions and behavior of the clinic staff should aim to reduce the psychological discomfort that most clinic visitors experience. A simple conversation often helps. Once the doctor has made a diagnosis, it's worth talking to the patient about their illness and treatment options, because it is unnecessary that scares them the most. The tone of the conversation, the degree of confidence of the specialist, and his appearance all have a psychological effect on the patient and affect the doctor's reputation sometimes more than the result. In addition to the private sector, there are also public healthcare providers. This cannot be ignored in strategic development planning and in calculating and competitiveness of services. A correctly defined market landscape is the basis on which all marketing and analytical processes are built. When further developing the advertising campaign, reliable data about competitors helps to save not only time but also money. The modern meaning of marketing is that it aims to realize the matching of production with demand. Objectives of modern marketing. First, a comprehensive study of the market, demand, tastes and preferences of consumers. Matching production to these demands and producing products which are in line with this demand. And effectively influencing public demand in the interest of the firm. Until recently, marketing in healthcare has tended to be used sporadically in the form of individual techniques, medicine demand studies, advertising of pharmaceutical products, etc. Nowadays, marketing has to become a tool for effective activity of healthcare institutions of all forms of ownership. Marketing contributes the more successful market penetration of paid medical services, including the public health institution, but by identifying the types of services that are in highest demand among consumers. In addition, the rational construction of the marketing policy of healthcare organizations significantly minimizes associated costs by promoting healthcare services to their users, patients, in a more informed and targeted way. The main aim of marketing in medicine is not to increase sales, but to benefit patients. In the long term, this works great for reputation and loyalty. The purpose of modern marketing in healthcare is to develop market forecasts for healthcare services, to optimize the strategy of healthcare delivery, and solving the problems of creating new types of services, good medicines, to better meet the demand for them. Let's look at the main functions of marketing in healthcare. The analytical function includes market research, consumer research, study of the structure of organization, study of goods, services, analysis of internal environment of the medical institution. The production function implies organization of service production, development of new technologies, organization of logistics, provision of goods and services, quality and competitiveness management of final product. The sale functions includes organization of sales of medical services, service organization, organization of demand generation and sales promotion system, implementation of meaningful product policy, target pricing policy, and of course management and control function consists of organization of strategic and operational planning in healthcare facility, information support for marketing management, organization of a communication system, and organization of marketing control. Principles of marketing applied to healthcare are the following: comprehensive research of all types of markets in healthcare, health services market, specialist markets, etc. Segmentation of market by group of health facilities, consumers, etc. Market segmentation is the division of the market into distinct groups of consumers, each of which may require specific goods or services. Segmentation is aimed at a specific group of consumers and can be based on geographic, demographic, behavioral, and other principles. In the healthcare system, market segmentation is part of the activities of private clinics, dental offices, health and beauty care organizations. A market segment is a set of consumers responding in the same way to the same set of marketing inducements. Flexible reaction of production and sale of medical services to the requirement of active and potential demand, next marketing principle. Innovation means introduction of new forms of work organization and management. And at last, planning types, volumes, and quality of medical services. Marketing principles, functions, and the methodology can be applied in health sector in three ways. Non-profit healthcare institutions are related to the performance of services under the compulsory health insurance programs, municipal contracting, and public health sector. Voluntary health insurance and directly paid services. The first direction can have such points of application such as patient attraction to avoid bed incapacity and decrease the function of physician position, reduction the duration of treatment to 80% of the standard, which further distribution of the proceeds based on labor participation rate, reducing and elimination the likelihood of a situation where penalties are imposed by regulatory authorities and lawsuits being filed by consumers. The other two areas have purely commercial interest and are focused on profit. Let's discuss healthcare marketing management. Marketing management is a complex of strategic and tactical actions aimed at effective implementation of the market behavior of a medical institution and achievement of its main goal, to ensure suitable and comprehensive success with patient, with normal profits and profitability of its main activity. Marketing management is the management of demand, depending on the level of which the types of marketing differ. Let's look again at the main types of demand and the types of marketing used. Negative demand, demand for goods and services that consumers dislike. In this case, Conversion marketing is carried out, aimed at analyzing the causes of the current situation and finding ways to change the negative attitude to the product. Latent demand is demand the level of which is not exactly known. At present, there is latent demand for almost all types of medical services. This requires developmental marketing, the main task of which is to assess the value of potential demand and create a product service that can satisfy this demand. Falling demand is a decrease in demand for one or more goods. The task of remarketing is to analyze the reasons for this decrease and achieve a reverse trend through the search for new markets, changing the characteristic of the goods. Irregular demand is the fluctuation of demand over time, which is very typical for the demand for medical services. This is where synchromarketing is done, which is aimed at smoothing out fluctuation in demand over time with flexible prices, flexible specialist schedules, etc. Field demand is the demand that coincides with the capabilities of the producer. At this demand, there is supporting marketing, aimed at maintaining high quality of goods and analysis of the level of consumer satisfaction. Excessive demand is demand higher than the producers of goods and services can or want to satisfy. Conducting demarketing is aimed at the permanent or temporary reduction in demand in general or in certain area of the markets. Irrational demand. Demand for goods and services that are harmful to the health and safety of consumers. Campaigns are conducted against the distribution of cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, etc. Here, counter-marketing is needed, which involves raising prices, restricting the availability of goods, disseminating scary information. Lack of demand is a situation where consumers are not interested in a product or service or are indifferent to them. Here, stimulative marketing is used. The task of it is to find ways to link the benefits of the good offered to the natural needs of man. It's necessary to identify the factors that can actively influence the demand and to get information about who needs services, what is the demand for them, and most importantly, what is the ability to pay. Market research will highlight such a factor as seasonality. In a health insurance environment, a struggle for the consumer of medical services appears. The task of marketing management is to achieve the desired level of sales at different state of demand for certain products. Marketing managers are the officials who analyze the marketing situation, develop plans for improvement and implement them. This range of persons includes sales managers, sales staff, advertising staff, market researchers, specialists in sales promotion, pricing problems, managers of individual products and services. The marketing management process consists of 4 main stages. First stage, market opportunity analysis. To analyze market opportunities means to study and evaluate peculiarities of the environment in which a particular medical and preventive treatment institution is located. The marketing environment is a set of active subjects and forces acting outside the organization and influencing the ability of marketing management to establish and maintain successful cooperative relationship with customers. The marketing environment consists of a microenvironment and macroenvironment. Marketing microenvironment is a set of objects operated within one medical institution. The analysis of marketing microenvironment implies a detailed study of those factors with which a particular medical and preventive institution is in direct contact. Marketing macroenvironment is a set of entities operated within the country, territory, region, city, district. This type of marketing includes suppliers, organizational individuals who provide health institutions with equipment, medicines, and other resources, competitors, market of medical services, marketing intermediaries, mass media, advertising services workers, social and economic conditions, natural features, and others. The analysis of the marketing environment or marketing researchers is carried out on the basis of studying of existing statistical information, expert estimations, and sociological interrogations. Second stage of marketing management means selection of target markets or market segmentation. We discussed already this question. You can see the following approaches for market segmentation. Third stage of marketing management, development of marketing mix. The marketing mix is a set of controlled elements in the marketing activities of a company organization. The marketing mix for P is used to influence on the target market through such instruments as product, price, promotion, and place. Include the following: development of goods and services, pricing, determining the method of good distribution, and promotional methods for goods and services, stimulation of sales. The 4P concept has been criticized for being too inward-looking inside the organization. In this concept, the focus is more on internal operations rather than customer requirements. Other mix of marketing components has been proposed as alternatives. 4A of marketing is consumer-centric marketing that pays heed to the 4 values that matter most to the consumer: acceptability, affordability, accessibility, and awareness. 4A of marketing are responsible for creating value for the customers. The 4P concept is further developed in the 4C concept. The 4C model of the marketing mix focuses primarily on the consumer. Forget about the product and learn about the customer wants and needs. Forget about price. Think about the cost to the consumer of meeting their needs. Forget distribution. Think of convenience. Forget about promotion. The correct word is communication. Hence, the main elements of the new 4C marketing mix: customer needs and wants, cost to the customer, convenience, and communication, information exchange, the most important. And last stage, implementation and practice of marketing measures. Choosing and organization's development strategy, short and long-term planning of activities, development of a system to monitor the implementation of marketing measures, and evaluation of effectiveness. The marketing concept is a system of basic ideas, provisions, and tools of marketing activities which are used to achieve the goals of the enterprise organization. The concept of marketing is determined by the state and interaction in the market of such subjects as producer, consumer, and state. There are 5 main marketing concepts. Production states that consumers will favor products that are widely available and affordable. Hence, management should focus its efforts on improving production and making the distribution system more efficient. Product concept states that consumers will favor products of the highest quality, the best performance and features, and the organization must focus its energy on continuous product improvement. Sales concept states that consumers will not buy products in sufficient quantity if the enterprise doesn't make significant sales and promotion efforts. Traditional marketing states that the key to achieving an organizational goal is to identify the needs of its target markets and provide the desired satisfaction in ways that are more effective than those of its competitors. And at last, social and ethical marketing states that the task of an organization is to identify the needs of its target market and to provide the desired satisfaction in ways that are more effective than those of its competitors while maintaining or enhancing the well-being of the consumer and society as a whole. Social marketing in healthcare defines health as a consumer product that can be purchased in exchange for certain cost and personal efforts. The essence of healthcare marketing is that it is all about the patient, his or her need to cure a disease or to maintain their health. Let's name basic component of medical marketing. First, study of patients who are consumers of services. The manager of the institution should determine which services will be in greatest demand for patients. What is the age, social, and professional composition of those seeking services? And what is their reaction to the prices offered? The purpose of such an analysis will be to get information to make a concrete decision on the amount or volume of health services to be provided. Second, study of patient behavior in the health services markets. When analyzing patient behavior, the question of why patients seek these particular services and their preference should be answered. Not only can their habits be studied, but the reasons for this behavior can be identified. The analysis may involve the use of special tests, questionnaires that allow healthcare facilities to study patient treatment of certain health services. The information obtained allows the head of the institution to increase the volume of medical services provided. Study of the market of medical services. This analysis is used to determine the amount of health services that a healthcare facility can actually provide. It is advisable to carry out an analysis for a single service or group of services. First of all, you should identify the factor that can actively influence the demand and get information about who needs the services, what the demand is, what the ability to pay for the service is. Thus, based on the analysis of various factors, you can determine your position in the medical services market. Study of competitors. Here it is necessary to identify the real competitors as accurately as possible to identify their strengths. It's necessary to get information about all aspects of competitors: financial position, prices for medical services, structure of medical services offered. The management of a healthcare institution will need to know how prices and costs compare with those of competitors, what benefits are offered to patients who regularly visit the institution. In the end, all these will help to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are, which will make it possible to move forward successfully. And 5 component of medical marketing: study of promotional activities. Demand creation and sales promotion of health services have a prominent place in modern healthcare marketing. The most effective factor in the work of health facilities in this direction is advertising. Speaking of the economic importance of medical advertising, it should be noted that advertising provides information that helps patients to choose the services they need. Successful advertising increases the volume of medical services provided and thus positively affects the amount of profit generated. Advertising in the context of competition between health centers encourages improvement in the quality of health services. Before advertising, any manager of health center should be clear about the following: who might be the main patient of the health facility in the area, what does the patient public know and don't know about health services in general and this health institution in particular, for which health services is there likely to be the greatest demand. Then, healthcare workers need to be fully and accurately informed as to what health services can be offered that are technically and service-wise different from those of your competitor, who your nearest competitor is, in what ways they are superior to you, what types of communication with you to patient would be most effective, what should be the main theme of your advertisement, what arguments for your institution would be most appealing to patients, what percentage of the profit can be given to the production of the advertising campaign, special features that need to be taken into account. The name of the health center is important. It should be simple, easy to remember and understand, as this is where the image of the health center begins. An important aspect of advertising is its credibility. It should be designed in such a way that the prospective patient will believe your institution, that it is here and it is they who will be properly cared for. Thus, the planning of an advertising campaign for one services is a set of actions and decisions taken by the health institution that lead to the development of specific measures designed to help the health institution achieve its short and long-term objectives. It's already known that correctly and competently designed advertising is a powerful means of increasing the provision of health services. Therefore, the amount of money to be allocated to advertising and the economic return on it must be clearly calculated. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention.